Welcome, everyone, to the Art Logic Talks Lounge at Future Fair. Today, we're thrilled to host a very special live recording right here on the floor of Future Fair. How Does the Art World Work is a podcast that does exactly what its name suggests, pulling back the curtain on the inner workings of the art world, one conversation at a time. I'm pleased to welcome your hosts, Matt Nasser, director of the Empty Circle Gallery, Claudia Doring Baez, Mexican New York City-based artist, and Bart Bland, curator, writer, and executive director of Lehman College Art Gallery.
Thank you. And today our guest is Jacqueline Cedar, who's an artist and director of Good Naked Gallery. And this is
here at Future Fair.
And we're at Future Fair. And this is
It's wrapping up, right? It's been a few days in the making. There's wonderful projects all over the place, including your booth.
Thank you.
And
I like Jacqueline's booth a lot. And I also like your booth, Matt.
thank you.
They're good booths and they should be visited. There's not any people in the audience. We need more people.
I don't think you should have brought that up, but that's okay. I wanted to start because I think, listeners are at various levels of dipping their toes into the art world. This is considered Art Week, and Future Fair is a satellite fair. There's a Freeze, which is the big fair, as they would call it, at the Shed in Hudson Yards, and then there's satellite fairs, and that happens generally for all art weeks in different cities. There's like Basel, and then there'll be art fairs, satellite art fairs around there. There's NADA, there's the Independent. There's many art fairs happening during this week in New York.
And also many art auctions.
And art auctions. And then I have to also realize, as I ran into a friend that's not in the art world at all, that I said, oh, it's Art Week, and had no idea. So that, New York is big enough, I think, that there's a whole, it's a giant week of art projects, but you can totally not notice it.
The city can absorb it, whereas in Miami, I think the entire town gets into the act, and it's much more on sort of the general public's consciousness. But I think in New York, you're right. It can be going on simultaneously with about 10 other things happening at the same week, and people aren't necessarily as aware. But certainly down here in Chelsea, they are. And there's been some really spectacular things. It's been interesting going around and seeing the trends here at Future Fair, which I think is some wonderful things. You and I were discussing that painting seems to be ascendant, something I'm sure you'd be very happy about in your own practice.
I'm a fan of
painting.
it?
I know that you are, yes. And certainly a kind of expressionism. There's like a looseness of painting. Claudia, I think that's quite similar to your style. I'm seeing that in the sort of the violent emotion, heavy brush strokes in the work. A lot of very decorative things in the best, not necessarily the pejorative use of the term, but in the best use of terms. I think there's been a re-embrace of beauty that I'm seeing in a lot of the booths, and so that's quite exciting.
How do you find your artist that you're featuring? The painter. I love the painter. What's his name?
So David McDonough. I'm showing 3 artists. Trevor King has a sculpture in the cafe, a large-scale figurative work, and we featured his work in a 2-person presentation last year here. David McDonough is the painter we're focusing on in the booth, and then Carl Durkow did the lamps and the vessel, and he also has a chair in the booth. Yeah, and I think we're leading into Design Week here as well, so there's kind of an overlap there.
There's a sculpture at the entrance.
Yeah, you got the salt and pepper shakers. He made
the same artist that did that big sculpture made those salt and pepper shakers?
No, so Trevor King did the figure and the table. There's a purple ceramic table in the booth, and then Carl Durkow did the yellow chair. It's called a pineapple chair, diced pineapple, and he did all of the lighting and the salt and pepper shakers and the vessel on the corner.
Do you think that there's a trend towards usable art? Do you think there's a trend towards usable art pieces? And sort of an increasing blurring of the line between Fern Archer and fine art. Claudia, I know you've been doing a lot of work in the furniture and decorative arts field.
Collectible is kind kind of like collectible work. It's like
Yeah. Well, there's
things that work for something, but they're also art. I think it's beautiful. I love to be surrounded by that type of work.
Yeah, Liv Weisberg from Collectible Fair came through the other day and was really excited, and Carl has participated in that fair. I've always been a huge fan of Friedman Benda, which is like a favorite gallery that kind of overlaps between art and more functional works. And Carl has mostly been shown in design context, but I really love his works as sculptures, and I felt like it was a really nice fit in pairing with David's paintings.
Yeah, it definitely fits. It's a beautiful booth what you have, and it's a great dialogue. Like the pieces that are, they light up a room, but they're also beautiful. I mean, it's so nice. I do like that. I like that part a lot.
Yes.
Yes.
I think that's true. We were speaking with a civil engineer yesterday at one of the fairs, and she's doing work for the MTA. And I was talking to her about having just come back from Paris and gotten off the plane, and how struck I am, of course, by the beauty of Paris, but also the little details in the 19th century in the Belle Epoque. The water fountain, the drain is beautiful. The municipal sign, of course, the great Art Nouveau metro signs. And she was talking about the desire to reincorporate that into life. And so I think in some ways, as we're seeing the art world, flourishing in sectors but struggling in others, I think that may be a way forward for artists to start applying themselves to how they can actually move beyond the very intense insularity of the art world and start thinking about how they can beautify our day-to-day lives, not only in big sort of public art pieces that you sort of plop into something, but in all of the sort of remarkable door handles, door stops, the trash cans. All of those things are so important to quality of life, and I think can help sort of re-engage the art world back into life, into sort of daily life and the everyman on the street that we always talk about. It would be really crucial.
And going back to how does the art world work? I mean, how does an artist get to the level where they can approach a city council or to make this happen? I mean, it's hard enough in this city to make art, and that you should be. I mean, I'm interested to hear. You have both sides of the, gallery director and artist. How does that inform your practice?
Well, so I haven't applied for a public works project, so I can't speak to that specifically, but I was just going to go back to what Claudia was asking about, like how I end up selecting artworks. And when I started the gallery, it was out of my apartment. I had a second bedroom that was available, and I didn't want another roommate. And I felt like it would be a nice opportunity to showcase some works by friends who were making amazing work and didn't have a space to show it. And so it started like in a very humble way, just giving a platform for people to show work. And it kind of grew transitionally into this kind of collaborative model with other galleries where I'm kind of like co-hosting and co-curating in permanent spaces. But like something that I really love about this idea of like functional work is we're often seeing works return to a home or a domestic setting when they get collected. And so there's something nice about this idea of really thinking through what it is, like how it can enhance your living environment to actually live with either objects on the wall or objects that are more functional like a light or, like you said, a doorknob. And it really does change the way you interact with the space. And I find that like even just like a space like this where we're sitting on a couch, like that makes you stick around longer and have a conversation and spend more time with the work. So it's all kind of like feeding back into context.
Comfortable seating. That's
Yes.
what we need in all of the fairs and all
art
those too many hard backless stools. As I'm moving to a certain age, I think that's very important.
Yeah. And like one of the reasons I started showing Carl's work is because one of the first fairs I did at Future Fair, I needed a place to sit, and I felt like it was taking up so much real estate for me to be sitting in the booth. So I wanted to have something that I could sit in, but also show off an artist's capacity for making.
Very smart.
So you commissioned that chair, the yellow chair?
No, Carl has always made functional objects. He makes a wide range from chairs to lights to tables. And vessels, and so I knew his work because I had shown him in my house before the pandemic. He had like a coat rack that he made out of like crushed velvet, and it was beautiful, and I loved living with it.
Coat rack?
A coat rack?
A coat rack.
A coat rack, so like a stand to hang your coats, but it was like really like beautifully designed in a way where you didn't want to cover it with a coat, but it was really amazing. It looked like a tree. And so I knew his work from just finding him online, and then we ended up, deciding to collaborate again when I needed the chairs for the fair.
Oh.
So he had them available and offered them.
We need Carl.
Well, I think that leads to something when you're using decorative art, working with, I guess we could say decorative arts for our sculptural pieces. It sort of leads to my question about commissions, because I was just at the Thomas Gainsborough show, one of the great 18th, probably the premier painter of the 18th century. And it's a spectacular exhibition on the Frick right now. And there was something in it that had such resonance to me about the art moment today, which was Thomas Gainsborough, although he was a painting genius, was completely willing to repaint paintings for a small fee if your dress went out of style 5 years later, if you didn't like your wig anymore and you wanted a new wig put on, if you had a kid and you wanted to add another kid to the thing. And some of these, there are, they've done X-ray analysis, have 2 and 3 different versions of dresses and wigs. And all I could think was, if you did that if you went back to any painter of any renown today and was like, I don't like my outfit in the work that you did of me, they would be so affronted, I think, in terms of a commission. And so how do you balance that between the sort of workmanlike quality and maintaining your artistic integrity? I think that's an interesting question.
Very interesting question. Is that for Jacqueline?
Yeah. You want to go first?
Well, recently I've been repainting paintings, which I always said I wasn't going to do.
Yeah.
I always said, no, I'm never going to go on top of my painting. As bad as it is, I'm not going on top of it. And then I'm starting to go on top of them, and they're turning into cakes. It's like another layer of tons of paint on top is not such a good idea. But on the other hand, it does add something. And as I grow and learn, I feel like I have more knowledge. And I know, like, when I did that painting, I had no idea what was going on. And now I have an idea how I can make it sing a little bit better. So I think it's fascinating that he did that, Thomas. I'm going to go see that show.
I'm really curious to see that and to look at the extras. I have mixed feelings about this, because one of my favorite Kandinsky monographs has a tiny black and white photo, and the caption is like destroyed by artists, and it's like an amazing painting. And I feel like artists don't often know how to read their work in terms of its resonance with an audience, and a lot of times we destroy something or cover something that maybe we've gotten sick of or we feel disillusioned by, but actually it could have like a lot of weight or meaning to someone else. So it's like a tricky balance between like self-editing and also like letting something sit out in the world, even if you feel a little uncomfortable with it. I work with some artists now that will like offer me an image to sell, and then like a few weeks later it's covered, and it like kind of hurts sometimes, but also like sometimes it can really generate something new and exciting. So you have to kind of be open to both, but it is like
hit rate?
Delicate balance.
What's your hit rate of, altering a composition and then determining at the end, like, oh, that was an aesthetic intervention that worked versus, I've ruined my painting.
There's always the risk, and that's sort of what's exciting about making, is the discovery and like the chance that it might kind of flop or it might kind of move. And there's always, for me personally, like a struggle in the work where you have a moment where you're like, this might not be worth continuing to pursue, but I have to kind of push through a little more to find it. I tend to have the most success in my own paintings when something is left undone, and then I resurrect it years later and come to it with a new eye. Less so when I try to cover something that's already been finished, for me personally. But how about for you?
I don't know. It's all hit and miss. I have no idea. I don't have any formula. But I went to see the Costume Institute. I went to the Met. I saw the Raphael show. And I saw the Costume Institute show. And it was super interesting, because you know how opinionated I am. And I'm always like, I don't like this. I hate this. That I couldn't make up my mind. Like, what is going on here? There's all these clothes that are not necessarily made by a designer. They're kind of made for that exhibition. So it's super strange. And then they pair it with a work of art. And sometimes it's a very successful pairing. It's like a Yamamoto trench coat with her apple, the same color scheme and the dots, and the trench coat is made by Louis Vuitton. So of course that works. Of course that's going to work. Louis Vuitton and Yamamoto together with dots. I mean, how can you go wrong with that? But then there's like a strange drapery and the like object, female body. It's fascinating, I have to say. Somebody worked really hard. And it must be seen and it must be talked about with other people to understand. There's fascinating moments.
How exciting you're talking about the actual exhibition and not the promenade of people up the staircase to the Met. It's nice. It's very good. It's a lot of curatorial work that goes into those shows at the Met Costume Institute.
And then it's co-opted by horrible, horrible people.
Yes, there is that.
But you speak so eloquently about how you're approaching your artist. Do you coach yourself and like in this way? And I would say what are the things that you've learned being both the curator and the artist inside?
It's the best education. We were talking just yesterday. I'm constantly like flipping my perspective as I'm working with other galleries and as I'm working with artists about, because sometimes the goals and the values don't exactly align. And, I tried to really start the gallery with the intention of thinking about what I would want as an artist and how I would want to be worked with and, what I would want a gallery to offer me. And so I try to kind of keep those values in mind when I operate with every individual. But sometimes, just like things go in opposing directions and I have to really check my perspective. Like as an artist, you're always kind of like, fighting for your own attention and your own context, conversation, opportunities. And as a gallerist, you're kind of thinking bigger picture about like a wide range of artists and how you can like create context for them in different cities in relation to different spaces, in relation to other artists. So, just like different kind of set of priorities.
Okay.
I'm totally blank.
What else can we talk about? Let's think. Your booth, Matt.
Oh.
You have a beautiful artist, very painterly. I love her work. It's super beautiful. And then I also like the eclecticity of, is that a word? Eclecticity?
The eclectic.
Eclecticity of Daniel. I mean, he has these butterflies that he laser cut, and he has this coral that he found, and then he added some incredible photographic image on top, very bizarre. And then he has real photographs that are outstanding. So he's I love him.
Yeah, I picked these two artists because I thought they were great in conversation with each other, and they're wonderful people to work with also. And then I was going back to this idea of what you were talking about commission, and I'm showing smaller works of Catherine Webb, and someone said, "I love these paintings. Do you have something bigger?" And I tried to convince Catherine maybe she'd want to do a commission, and she would just froze and was like, "No,
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
very
really
personal.
like to do that. It doesn't feel like I'm doing my artwork."
It's so tricky. I just did one for the first time and it was like a little intimidating. And I have some artists that I work with who are very happy to do them and are very mechanical in the way they're able to reproduce their style in different scales. And I don't tend to work that way. And I wonder if maybe she's similar, where like I can't guarantee that it's going to be, there's always a kind of a leap of faith. Even as an artist, when I'm starting an image, I can't guarantee that what's in my head will end up on the surface. There's just so much translation that happens in between. And so it's same when somebody's asking for a commission, like the guarantee that they'll be excited about whatever transpires as you're making and trying to create whatever vision is in their mind is like a tricky balance. But it's exciting when it works because it's so nice to have an opportunity, a deadline, like a chance to really play with a new scale or like subject. But it has to feel, like connected to your practice, I guess, in some ways.
Sistine Chapel is forced commission. Good work on it,
We're grateful for it. yeah.
Pretty much.
It really worked out.
You're going to be doing this chapel.
Yeah.
Let's get rolling.
Did he complain about it?
Oh.
Michelangelo is always sort of happy about it.
Yeah.
In some ways. He's got to be chiseling.
They just told him he had to do it, and he did it?
Well, with the Pope, should be like.
I'm sure they had a lot of dirt on him.
Well, maybe the hanging skin, like that skin suit, is sort of, was that like part of the
I
reaction?
know that one. That's Saint Bartholomew, who was flayed alive. Yeah, so he's all hanging there.
I always
I
think
hate
of that
it
as
when
the
people
artist.
tell me what to do. I'm still a child.
Yeah, I understand.
Tell me what to do. I'm not going to do it.
Well, one of the pleasures of being an artist is really being able to assert your voice in whatever way you like, and not like being driven by somebody else's project. And so, yeah, it's nice to feel like you have the agency.
And then the art dealer
Right.
emails you. I need this in blue, this size for this.
I mean, there's like a whole history of artists who have complained about the context in which their work is shown, what they were asked to make. So it's like interesting when an artist is like more laissez-faire about it, because there's like some humor to it as well, I think, that can be co-opted maybe.
Yeah. And I was thinking when you were describing what he was doing, I was like, oh my God, that's AI. I want a different wig. I want a different dress. I want a different.
Well, it's true, because a lot of that, because of technology, has transmogrified to first to photography, now to computer-generated AI things. So now that's kind of looked upon, and if you could generate everything all of the time, it'll be interesting if that changes people's art practice to being more accommodating to that kind of thing in their fine art, or whether that will become even more kind of problematic or radioactive to do that kind of work.
I think a lot of artists have already for years used that as a tool to like kind of Photoshop and test different ideas. Also, like Matisse is a really interesting early example of someone who's like thought of as this like very like joyful, like quick, easy made, the paintings feel very fresh and direct, and yet when you kind of look at the extras of those, there's layers and layers of overworking and trying, like the Moroccans or paintings like this, where like you really see all the different variations, and it's like, it's not thought of that way, but it landed somewhere for him.
But because it looks so, I just saw the Matisse show at the Grand Palais this week, and his dealer, he did a big odalisque, and they had the finished painting there, and it looks like he just sort of, and he had photographed. He had done 12 complete different variations of that painting, all underneath of that. And they had them all in 1920s, black and white, blown up to scale at the
amazing.
gallery, so that the people who were sort of claiming that he was very sort of tossing it off the cuff could see how much labor had gone into making something look effortless.
And I think there's something that we can maybe like push against, which is this like desire for labor to have value. Like sometimes you can put all of this effort into the process, and then you go into the studio and you have an hour and you make something that feels meaningful. And it doesn't have to be a whole, it could have been like a year's worth of like maybe prep in your mind, but it could happen very quickly once it's there.
Definitely.
Yeah.
100%. I agree 100%. There's nothing to add to that.
But I think of like, if you've ever seen, there's like a really great documentary where they just watch Alex Katz making a painting in a day, and you just see him in there, these like very confident strokes, and he just goes in and you see him kind of laying it in. And like, it's clear to me, I mean, I'm not sure of his process exactly, but I feel like there's probably a lot of preparatory things happening, or maybe not, but like, who cares? Like, does it have to be hours and hours of labor for us to feel something? Like, I don't know. But it's interesting.
So. I don't think it's equivalent. I mean, the hours of labor, they're not equivalent. It's like, that does it work? Or does it not work?
And different kinds of labor. Mm-hmm.
I think the hours of your life is what, I mean, it's like, what is it, like 10,000 hours to be a genius at something, a master at something? I mean, if you can do it in 20 minutes,
Yeah, and you can probably identify with this as an actor. Like my dad always said, you do all the prep so that you can go in with ease, and not think.
Yeah.
And so there's something about just like having the time, just sitting in the studio and staring at something and moving things around. Anyways.
Yeah, and I think I've seen you struggle with that of like, you can do something like this and it's fabulous, stop, and there's almost a guilt to it in a way, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we just to put into a lesson of that for how does the art world work. It's there's following that, knowing you're enough as an artist, whether you're, and when you have that moment where you're coming up against a gallery, an art dealer, and wanting to please, wanting to put your work out there, whatever these opportunities are, it's like a time to make a decision of like what kind of artist you want to be. And yeah. And
I would just add, like, there's a lot to be said for like trust in the person you're collaborating with, and like kind of giving benefit, if you've had some track record with whoever you're working with, giving the benefit of the doubt that like they're working hard for you, you're working hard for them. There's an exchange happening. That can be like a really beautiful dynamic.
Absolutely. And as an actor, as an artist,
I will say to all the people that are listening to us, Contact Jacqueline Cedar. Just kidding.
Come visit. Oh, I am a fan of Seinfeld, and when my roommate left the second bedroom of my apartment, my friend joked that I was stressed about how I was going to make rent, and he said, "Well, now you at least get to walk around naked everywhere." And I'd been watching the Seinfeld episode where Jerry has a girlfriend that walks around naked, and he loves it until she starts like opening pickle jars naked and fixing bikes naked, and he's like, "That's not good naked." So I like work with humor, intimacy, vulnerability, awkwardness, and so it felt relevant.
And it looks so good on the wall when you come in. So
It's fun.
yes, it was fun.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me. It's
Thank you,
nice to have a
Jacqueline.
conversation.
I'm Matt Nasser,
I'm Claudia Baez.
I'm Bartholomew Bland.
Jacqueline Cedar.
and this is How Does the Art World Work?
That'd be great.
Okay, how do we do this? Give me the mic. Come
A
on.
question from the audience.
So, how do you identify and cultivate the right audience or collectors for the artists that you choose to represent as gallery owners?
Well, I think that's like the biggest part of my job as a gallerist, especially as a young program, is seeking out, like I always say to artists when, there's a lot of vulnerability in making, and sometimes if something doesn't sell, there's like insecurity. And I always say, you make what you want to make, and my job is to find the audience for what you're making. Like if I'm working with somebody, I really believe in what they're doing. And so most of the time it's a matter of like kind of seeking out, again, just audiences in different places, like at art fairs. Like an art fair is a really amazing way to build an audience as a young space. Do you have?
I let the universe do it.
It's good too.
I know it when I see it. What is that? That's like the pornography. I know it when I see it.
Well, since I run a university art gallery, we're not in the business of selling, which is, perhaps a downside for emerging artists, but also a privilege because I'm much more likely or able, have the ability to not sort of worry about the salability of work that we're showing. And for me, it's really because we do thematic group exhibitions, it's really the mix so that we have some very well-known names in every show. We've got practicing mid-career artists and then blending in emerging talents, because I think that's when you get those conversations going between artists of different phases of their career, that's what's going to be most beneficial for young artists who are emerging.
And that's why you see like a lot of group shows for younger spaces, because they're trying to kind of mix audiences from different artists. And I mean, working with a university is so important for an artist's CV as well. It's just kind of building
So
that
if you're an
longevity.
artist and you have a unicorn, you can talk to Bart.
That's the next show.
Because he's doing a show about unicorns.
Yes, we're seeing it, and that's a topic for another episode. But yes, we're.
But yeah, I think as an artist, when I'm researching what galleries I want to work with, I go to fairs, I go to other galleries, and I look at the kinds of work they're showing. I look at the way that they interact with their audience. I kind of try to vibe out, like, is this somebody that I could get along with and work well with? There's so many elements to the exchange.
Thank you. Thank you again. Au revoir. From New York.